Hi everyone, I'm Michael back Goblin Games. In this video, we'll take a look at how we handle movement in Fire and Bronze. Every unit has a move attribute that tells you how far the unit can move in inches when you take a single move action. For most units, this is 5 inches. Cavalry, vehicles, and chariot runners move a bit faster. Moving units follows the norm of miniature games. Just measure from start to finish, making sure to move no more than the unit's move allows. A unit that takes 2 move actions when activated is running. Running allows a unit to cover distance faster and also makes the unit more difficult to hit. We mark running units with a token as a reminder they are running. An important rule here is that most infantry units can only run for 2 consecutive turns. Let's walk through a quick example of running, and we're going to use these warriors here as well as these enemy archers. So right now these warriors are just sitting out in the open, making good targets for the archers. So the warriors get activated, they're going to run. That means they're going to take 2 move actions. Each move action is 5 inches, so they're going to run and they're going to go 10 inches. I'm then going to give them a running token. Now their goal was to get behind these trees, so they didn't quite make it. So the archers still have a clear line of sight at the warriors. However, since the warriors are running, the archers will be at a penalty with their next attack on those warriors. If the warriors were to run a second time, they would get marked with another running token. Now that's the most they could run consecutively. They could only run 2 consecutive turns. So on the next turn, they could not run again. All models in a unit must maintain a cohesive boundary. For infantry, this is 5 inches. This means all models in an infantry unit must fit inside a 5-inch circle. There may be exceptions of dealing with restrictive or dividing terrain. Let's look at a quick example of unit cohesion. So this is a unit of archers. There's only 7 models in this unit. Infantry units are going to be anywhere, at least they're going to have a starting strength anywhere from 5 to 10 models. So this is kind of in the middle. So this is a 5-inch ring. So all models in this unit need to be within this ring. This is a good time to point out that we're not concerned with the exact placement of any one model in the unit. Rather, we're concerned with the unit as a whole with moving, measuring, attacking, and so on. Games of Fire and Bronze won't always take place on a field that is easy to navigate. You'll have to contend with woods, hills, walls, and so on. Terrain such as this has the result of slowing down moving units. Terrain can also be used to protect a unit, and in some cases may be the objective of a scenario. Though in regard to movement, we keep it simple. Rough ground reduces a unit's move by 1 inch, at least for infantry. Vehicles have a much more difficult time with rough ground to the point of risking destruction should they pass through it. Let's look at a quick example of a unit moving into or through rough ground. We have a unit of infantry, and infantry moves 5 inches. They are 2 inches away from these woods. So they're going to move 2 inches, at which point they're going to enter the woods. Now once they enter these woods, their movement is going to be reduced by 1 inch, from 5 to 4. So at this point, they can move 2 more inches into the woods. Units can take a move action to move into hand combat with the enemy. Any unit that moves into hand combat has charged, whether they use 1 move action or 2 to close the distance. The target of the charge has some options provided they haven't already been activated and are not already engaged in hand combat. Though first, the unit's going to test to see if they successfully activate. If the unit fails to activate, then it may be caught flat-footed and not able to respond. This means the charging unit is allowed to close in and make an attack without the enemy unit responding in kind. If the activation is successful, the target unit can declare a number of actions, such as a counter charge. They can attempt to adopt a formation, they can discharge missiles, or they can just try to get away. The target unit can take a number of reaction actions equal to the number of actions it took the charging unit to cover the distance. For example, if the charging unit needed 2 actions to engage, Then the target unit is allowed 2 response actions, such as an aim and then a missile attack, or a missile attack followed by a hold, or a missile attack followed by a move. Let's look at a few examples of a unit responding to an enemy charge. Here we have 2 units of warriors. These Sea People's Sheridan warriors are going to charge into the Egyptians over here. Now they're about 9 inches away, so it's going to take them 2 actions to get here. And we're just going to assume that they were successfully activated. The Egyptians have not been activated yet, so they do have the option of responding. So I'm going to, let's see, this is kind of important. So I'm going to allocate 2 activation dice for the Egyptians, and I'm going to roll. Again, they're pretty good, so their activation is a 7. So I rolled a 2 and an 8, so they successfully activated. Now at this point, since they successfully activated, they have 2 actions they can take. They can countercharge, and just kind of the way that works is the guards would move this way, and they would basically kind of just meet roughly in the middle, and they would both carry out a free hand attack because they charged. And I'll talk about that more once we get into the combat video. Another option, they could, if they wanted to, allow the Sheridan to move in, and let's just say the Egyptians had javelins. They could then discharge their javelins if they wanted to, or maybe they could, if they wanted to, they could actually aim and then discharge their javelins, which they probably wouldn't do because their javelins are not going to be as effective as they would in hand combat. Let's say they're armed with spears. With spears, you can hold, which is going to give you a bonus to your defense on that first attack. So the Sheridans could move in. The Egyptians could say, okay, we're just going to hold as a response. That way they're going to get a bonus on their defense. So those are just a few actions. Well, actually one more I should talk about here. Again, the Sheridans move in. Let's just say they didn't really want to engage. They could simply move away. And you would do that if maybe they were seriously outnumbered, or maybe you're trying to draw the Sheridans here into a trap. They want to move away, the Sheridans continuing to move in, and then they get hit from a couple different sides. So a few options here when responding to an enemy charge. Moving vehicles is a bit different than infantry. Infantry can move basically in any direction and has much more freedom than vehicles. Vehicles must use a turn template. Let's walk through an example of moving some vehicles, and we're going to use these Hittite heavy chariots in this example. Now, if the chariots were to continue just moving forward, they're going to hit this patch of woods, which is not something you want to do with your chariots. So they need to move up and either go to the left or go to the right and maneuver around the chariot. So they're going to have to make a turn. All vehicles have a turn template associated with them. In this case, these heavy chariots have a 4-inch turn template associated with them. That just means if these heavy chariots want to do a complete about face, it would take them 4 inches of movement to do that. Let's compare that to a light chariot template, and that template's only 2 inches. So if these were light chariots, they would only need 2 inches of movement to complete that about face. And that's just because the light chariots are more maneuverable, more nimble than the heavy chariots. So let's just walk through this example. The heavy chariots are going to veer off to the left. So I want to put this template on the left chariot. If I were to put it way over here, then what would happen? He would move 2 inches and he would follow suit, but he actually would end up getting a lot of free movement out of that. So we don't want to put that template on the corner of the chariot. Rather, we just want to put it on basically at the front of the chariot. And we're going to move this chariot first. So he's going to move 2 inches. So that's 1 inch and then 2 inch. And then he can continue moving forward. And then if I wanted to, if you had movement left over, I could put the template back over here and then move some more. And they can continue doing that until they just run out of movement. The last bit we'll cover is the use of formations. By default, infantry units are in a loose formation. However, infantry units are allowed to adopt a shield wall or a phalanx. This is an example of when a unit may ignore the usual cohesion rules. While formations offer some bonuses, they do also come with some drawbacks, including the loss of the normal 360-degree field of view and some penalties if they are attacked on the rear or the flank. That'll wrap up this video on movement in Fire and Bronze. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe, comment below with your thoughts, and check out the other videos in this series. Thank you.